I don't think there's much redeeming quality left after what took place yesterday against Atlanta.
No, I'm certainly not done with the club. I mean, there's a lot of season left, and I'm not saying that because I think that, I'm holding out hope for a playoff run and all that stuff. I think at this point in time, and really the mindset should have been just like, all right, let's just focus on this next game and see what happens. But, I'm just going to try to really enjoy each and every matchup. Now it becomes, for the next game, okay, well, how do they look coming out of the bye? Did they do anything when it comes to lineup changes? Are there different roles with coaches? Is there any movement within the organization? I think we're all kind of wondering what's going to happen over the next 10 days to 2 weeks. And then when it comes to the game, it's like, well, let's just earn some pride back and beat the Packers and kind of spoil their season. So you kind of become spoiler now, and you get to be the thorn in people's sides. And yeah, if you can get a win there and pluck off a few more just for fun, get a win in New Orleans, get a win at Tampa, those little wins will be kind of fun throughout the season. Now, the other side of that is all the people that are draft watching are saying, like, no, what are you doing? Yeah. You don't want to win those games now. You want as high a draft pick as possible. And I certainly understand that too. So I would just like to see the team compete and compete at a high level. So,
there's not any question that when a team changes its coach, there's always the chance that they're going to feel like, what the hell, let's go for it today. If we feel like we're starting over, we don't lose the losses, but we'll pretend that we're 0-0 again. And, we got a new coach. It's our opportunity to say that we're really not that bad and let's go out and do something. Yet I have to believe that what happens once the game begins has a big impact on how far a team in that position can carry it. And so to that extent, I can't imagine a worse thing for the opposing team to do than to throw an interception literally on the first play from scrimmage after doing something Zim never does, and apparently, according to his postgame comments, will never do again. Take the ball after winning the toss, the interception. Because then, I got to believe, Ben, that's what opens the door to, hey, you know what? This might be fun today. Maybe we actually can steal this thing. And it felt like it sort of built on that, and you could see, you were there, but it looked from the Barca as if the energy level kept going up on the Atlanta sidelines, as if they're saying we're undefeated and we're just going to keep rolling here. And the Vikings, it just looked like there was almost nothing left. I didn't see much sign of faith, emotion, fun, frivolity, anything from them.
No, going back and looking at it in retrospect, I do think that there was a hangover from the Seattle game, and the team did not look overly enthusiastic to be there. And, maybe 10 guys were on offense and Kirk was slow to start and he throws an interception. So maybe I'm just making it all about the one throw. But, it was the classic trap game. You come off the road from a tough loss. You're licking your wounds. You're thinking about, possibly thinking about the bye week, even though they're not in a position to do that. But you certainly think that it's an obstacle you have to overcome psychologically, is not think about what's going to happen after the game. And you also have the team that is winless, and they just fired the coach and GM. And so your mind is playing tricks on you about, how urgent you have to be for this game. And they certainly, as the Falcons come in and they get to play free, they get to just go out there and run around and like, hey, nobody has any expectations for us. And all of a sudden you get a gift interception to start the game. And it's like, all right, here we go, boys. We got short field. Let's go put some points on the board. We're going to get the ball back in the first, get the ball back first in the second half and see what we can do there. And so everything just worked out for them. And I think the most frustrating part, at least from my eyes, was Vikings seemed flat coming out. The interception's thrown. They go down and score. And I think we went 3-and-out the next series. And it's like, if Zim says after the game that we were ready to go, we're going to dial something up. We had a great game plan to get the ball down the field on an opening drive. That's why we won the toss.
Yeah.
And I took the ball. Well, do you throw that theory out? Do you throw the game plan out for the second drive? So if that's if you didn't do that, then your big explosive start was the 3 and out in the second series. Like, where was that? Why does the mentality have to be thrown out the window just because on the opening drive didn't work? All right, well, you get a second chance. You get the ball back. I just didn't understand some of the rationale behind the game after it was over, and in the way it all played out, it just seemed flat. And it was frustrating because that's not what the team is built on. I mean, if anything, lose playing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Don't lose because you're licking your wounds and feeling sorry for yourself.
Well, is so when you look at this offense, the trend around the league is there are fewer interceptions being thrown. I think we're on a record pace, and of course Cousins is the exception to the rule. And then again, you have another key 4th down and 1 where you go for it, which again I wasn't bothered by, and you get nothing on that. Are you hinting at a belief that part of the issue is maybe we got to get a little bit more sophisticated or a little bit, I don't want to say zanier exactly, but a little bit less constipated and less predictable in what we do? Or do you view it, because to me a lot of this is still just comes down to flat out poor execution? Well,
there are times where I'm watching the Falcons offense and I'm kind of envious a little bit of kind of their It's not even creativity. It's just their speed of their execution and how pure some of their execution was to us. And I mean, look at that Hayden Hurst touchdown. Have you ever seen it? And we haven't displayed anything like that this whole season, or even if we've attempted to, it hasn't been obvious because it's been a lack of execution. And maybe there is the throwback hide play by the tight end in the playbook. And I'm not saying that we have to display that just to show some creativity, but there's been nothing of that sort, And you go back to that 1st and goal on the 2-yard line. Justin Jefferson gets him down there, and I'm okay with starting off with 2 runs to try to pound in there from the 2-yard line. You gotta think that our guys can do that against that defense. But I could have bet my house that we're going to run a bootleg on the 3rd play. I mean, that was a given, and that play was quickly pulled up by an outside rusher that was free. And Irv still got his 2 hands on the ball, but then the linebacker comes over and knocks the ball out and makes a good defensive play. But it's like I could have predicted that play, and then we come back with a weird hurry up quick snap that fooled our own offense and stuff ourselves on 4th down.
Yeah, and it didn't get all that much better. We got the obligatory garbage points later, which we're happy for, but it really didn't have anything to do with the outcome of the game. Before we wrap things up today, you haven't been around this town as long as I have, but you've been around a decent amount now between playing and now doing what you do at this juncture too. Long enough, I would assume, to get a bit of the feel. I mean, you didn't see Sid, what we classified in his prime, but Sid kept going and kept going and kept going. So I'm wondering, when it's somebody who comes from a town like you, what your observations were of regarding the Sid phenomenon, because I don't think there's really anybody like him in any of the towns that you played in.
No, I don't. No, I don't think so. I mean, there's certainly nothing in San Diego and nothing in that abysmal place of St. Louis I was for a year. I mean, I never saw anything like it. And never, I think, again, will we ever see anybody like that. I mean, people just move around too much. People are too transient. Yep. And on top of how iconic of a broadcaster he was, I heard all the stories about him as a businessman, just as he was just a grinder, and anything that he could get his hands on, it sounds like he made successful. And I don't know, it's a rarity to find somebody that with that much drive and determination to make everything that he touches into gold. And, truly is special. I think I got here, when I got here I kind of caught the funny parts of Sid.
Yes.
As far as like, here's this quirky, old guy with this 1920s tape recorder that still works somehow, some way. And he's just going to kind of push his way around in the scrum, and he's going to walk into restricted areas because he can. He's just going to do these things that other people can't. And you're just kind of watching from afar like, man, you really got to be somebody with as tense and as uptight as NFL franchises are about the security and about clearance and about where people can go in certain parts of the building. this dude just shuffled around Winter Park like he owned it. And I'm like, man, this guy's got to be some sort of baller to have that sort of authority to do that. And they did. They just kind of shook their head and they're like, yeah, this is Sid. He's earned the right to kind of walk wherever he wants to walk and talk to whoever he wants to talk to. And that's special, man. I mean, we'll never see that again. I mean, I don't even think icon or legend is a strong enough word to describe what he meant to broadcasting in general.
Thanks, Lieber. We will chat next week. Enjoy the football the rest of the night. You got a doubleheader now. You're in football heaven, aren't you?
Get that Douglas and Todd right now. There's football.
Oh, that's right. Douglas and Todd. Don't forget.
So pour one out before 4.
I know. Okay, so I will pour myself one in about 30 seconds. But what do we? The doubleheader doesn't seem right for football. What can we call it? What can we call it?
Yeah, we do need a name for it. You're right about that.
A name for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a double doink because that's just a bad connotation,
especially in Chicago. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll come up with. Our listeners are pretty enterprising. They'll find something. We'll have it for you for next week.
All right.
Thanks. Because this might not be the last doubleheader. I think we're learning because we got potentially more COVID cases, and so this pretty much could go on and on and on. The rest of the show, we still got a lot yet to play out. Louie will join us at 4:30. We've got Bob Hagan, media relations maven, Vikings 4:55. Part 2 with Bud Grant. In the 5 o'clock hour, we've got Royce scheduled for 5:30. When we return, we will chat, first time on air, I think, on the Fan since we went our separate ways, Chad Hartman. It's been, of course, a very gut-wrenching period for Chad, and we will get caught up with him and how he has sort of processed the last 24 to 48 hours, and maybe even a couple of good Sid stories as well.
The Fan.
Sid Hartman, I don't know if it was illegal or not, but he'd pick up me and Michael Thompson and Mark Oberding, and we'd go to Oak Ridge and have buffet, or should I say destroy the buffet table out there and on Sundays. And so those are relationships that formed and have always lasted.
Flip Saunders. Oh, boy. That's still even hard to believe in the current context, talking about his early introduction to Sid Hartman. Honored today to be joined by Sid's kid, Chad. Got to be a very difficult period of time, and no one would blame Chad if he wanted to maybe get a few quotes in the day of and then just sort of relax a little bit and think about all the things that I'm sure he's thinking about. But he was kind enough to say he would agree to be on with us today, and we very much appreciate the time, sir. How are you? As if that's not a very good opening question.
Well, I'm doing this for 2 reasons. My respect for you and Guardsy, and the overwhelming support that has just come our way because of this remarkable life that my father has led. And I mean, I'm going to start crying from the start here because here in Flip, it's just too tough because we picked out some clothes for my father, and I made sure to find the Flip pin because of that dynamic. So that just that brings back somebody we both, all 3 of us, knew so well. So it's just overwhelming, Dan.
Let me ask you something.
In so many ways.
Again, the cliche is you say to someone who lives to be 100 years old, and you say, my God, he lived life. He certainly was not cheated. But that doesn't necessarily mean at the moment it happens that it's easy to be philosophical about it or just let it slide off of your back. How has that been for you in terms of how you've processed it? And has it been any different than you thought it might have been or was going to be?
Well, Guardsy called me and I told him that. So you're right on. I said, if any of us are lucky to have someone in our life who has been there as long as my father. My father had me older, right? He was 45 when he had me. So I've had 55 years of my father, and he's 100. And I've thought so many times, because he's had these other health scares, some public, some more private, that I should be prepared. But I don't know how you're really prepared because as I told Patrick